Which 3DS model should you buy here in 2023? Today, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at each 3DS model all the way from the 3DS in 2011 to the 2DS XL in 2017. Let's get started. So let's get some background for the 3DS. Before the 3DS released, as many of you may know, there was a console called the Nintendo DS, which was a revolutionary console and was released in like the mid 2000s. Anyways, this was a amazing console. It sold up to like 150 million units or something crazy like that. And it was just absolutely amazing. And Nintendo wanted to expand upon this handheld console with something that they would call the 3DS, which would release in 2011. This console didn't exactly have the best release per se. It launched and it was a great console, although people didn't really like the 3D feature, but that was a whole separate issue that they eventually fixed. But the console barely released with any games, and they would have to improve upon that. But in the beginning of the 3DS, it was not really looking too good, and Nintendo was gonna have to figure out a way to really make this a great console, which they did, and it was honestly really paid off. Their work really paid off. It was great. So let's talk some more about the original 3DS console. The original 3DS resembled that of a brick and had a very glossy finish. It was pretty nice to look at, but when you held it, it wasn't the most comfortable thing to hold, and not to mention that it was also extremely small, which would be fixed later with the Nintendo 3DS XL. But the Nintendo 3DS was a great start to a great generation of consoles, but there were a lot of things that had to be fixed, and the 3D feature that it was marketed to separate itself from everything else, well, the 3D wasn't really that great on this console, and it really never was, but the games and things were really great, so it didn't really matter. But this was just still a really great console, and if you turn off the 3D, it still looks great. And the 3DS also introduced something called the Circle Pad, which was not seen before. It was kind of like a flat joystick, and it had a camera, it had Wi-Fi connectivity that was obviously improved. So now it's time for the big question for the original 3DS that you've all been waiting for. Should you buy the original 3DS released in 2011 in 2023? If you don't know already, I'm going to tell you that the Nintendo 3DS and 2DS consoles, the prices are absolutely insane, with many of the consoles going up to as high as $350 on places like Amazon and eBay, which are also the only places to find these kinds of consoles. And another thing is that I've seen a lot is that a lot of people want to buy consoles like the 3DS from eBay or Amazon or wherever from Japan, which is actually a really bad idea because you're going to get the console and it's going to be region locked, and then you're going to have to homebrew it to your region, but then you'll lose a lot of the access to features such as the Nintendo Network ID and the eShop, which is discontinued, but you still have to download updates, and many more things. So anyways, I'm going to say if you really want the cheapest way to get into the 3DS lineup, but you're not like really into all of the new features of the 3DSs and the newer consoles in the 3DS lineup, then I'd say, yeah, sure, go for it. But if you want a better console in the 3DS lineup, then I would say you should spend a lot more money, which I'll talk about later on in the video, and get a better console. Now we're moving on to the Nintendo 3DS XL, which was also a wonderful console. This was the first console in the 3DS lineup that I got because I was looking for a bigger screen. We got it from GameStop. But anyways, the Nintendo 3DS XL improved upon the original 3DS in 2012 when it was released because it had 34.62% more battery power. It had a 1750 milliamp hour battery versus a 1300 milliamp hour battery, and it had an internal power supply. And obviously the biggest difference was the 40% bigger screen size, and it had stereo speakers, and it used flash storage. So those were some of the improvements over the Nintendo 3DS in 2011. But why should you buy the Nintendo 3DS XL? So what I'm going to say for the Nintendo 3DS XL is that you should buy it if you want a much bigger screen, a lot longer battery, and all of the other new features, but are okay with paying more. From what I've seen, the Nintendo 3DS XL is going from around, I'll say, 180 to like 230, 250 in the United States. So you can buy it if you want all of these features, but again, are okay with paying a lot more money. Now, let's talk about one of the most interesting types of Nintendo 3DS and 2DS consoles. This is the original 2DS. The original 2DS, as you can see on the screen, is not exactly the original type of form factor of all the other consoles. So basically what it was a completely flat kind of console, and it didn't have the folding and closing feature thing. But a lot of people, when it released, thought it was just kind of going to be like a kid's console, also because of how cheap it was. It released at $90. And the thing that separated this from the 3DS and the 3DS XL was obviously that it was only 2D, and it didn't have that weird 3D feature that no one liked, which could have appealed to some, and actually a lot of people. So I'm going to say buy the Nintendo 2DS if, again, you want it at a cheaper price point, and you don't really care about the 3D feature like most people do, and you don't care about the folding feature, and you want it at a cheaper price point. So if you want to buy the 2DS, those are some reasons why you should. So the new 3DS was an improvement on the very original 3DS that released in 2011. So this one released in around 2014, and it had a lot of improvements to bring. One of the most notable being the improved upon 3D feature that had a lot better 3D tracking if you want to use the 3D feature, although it still wasn't the best. So here's some more things that were better about the Nintendo new 3DS. It had upgrade and revision with slightly better technical specs, which was really good. Addition of the C-Stick for more control options, which some of the games were exclusive to the new 3DS and its other counterpart, the new 3DS XL. It had access to the SNES Virtual Console. It had a micro SD card and micro SDHC card compatibility up to 2 gigabytes and 32 gigabytes, which was really good. So I'm going to say buy the Nintendo new 3DS if you want faster processing power in a smaller form factor, much improved face tracking for the 3D effect, but are okay with paying a still very high price than the other models listed so far. Alright, let's talk about the new 3DS XL, which also released in 2014 along with the new Nintendo 3DS. The new Nintendo 3DS XL is virtually no different from the new Nintendo 3DS, except for the fact that it was also a lot bigger. It had the same improved 3D tracking, it had the same performance, and it had the same Wi-Fi, all that jazz. It was pretty much the same thing, except for the bigger battery, bigger screens, and it was just like bigger. So in the end, I'm gonna say buy the new Nintendo 3DS XL if you want the bigger screens, but you're okay with paying probably the highest price out of every 3DS console and 2DS console ever. On Amazon, I've seen these things going from like $350 to $400, like it's actually insane. But if you go on eBay, you can probably find some better deals. Finally, there's the Nintendo 2DS XL, which came out like 3 years after the Nintendo new 3DS and the new 3DS XL. This console was great. It felt a lot better. It had all the improvements of the Nintendo new 3DS and the new 3DS XL, just all without the 3D. And a lot of people really liked that. It also started at a price of $150, so a lot of people really liked that. One downside to this console, though, that I've noticed with mine, because this is the console that I use, it has a very glossy screen, but like, it's not a very big deal because it's just not, so don't worry about it too much. But yeah. So I'm gonna say for this console, buy it if you're okay with paying a higher price than the original price, but it's still kind of reasonable. And buy it if you also don't want the 3D and you just don't really care about the 3D. So yeah, and also if you really like the comfort of the console and how it feels. Alright guys, so now I'm going to announce the final verdict of which console I personally think is the best. And now I will warn you ahead of time, it's not just because I own this console and I haven't really had the other ones. It's not because of that. I've really thought about which one is going to be the best for most people, and that is the 2DS XL. It's the newest. It doesn't have the 3D. It's not super bulky, it's super sleek. It feels great, has all the processing power. Everything about it is just an amazing console. It has the backwards compatibility with the DS games still. Yeah, just like everything is really good. And now you won't be able to find it for around $150 anymore, but you will be able to find it for around $215 to, I'll say, maybe like $250 on eBay. So do some looking and searching, and hopefully, I hope you'll find a really great 2DS system and really be able to get into the Nintendo 3DS line of consoles if you haven't already. Alright guys, well that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Very happy to have my editor back. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.